That was the President a little bit earlier on addressing the mining indaba in Cape Town. For a little bit more on this, we're now joined by energy analyst and lecturer from the University of Johannesburg, Professor Hartmut Winkler. Thank you so much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Yes, hello, good evening.
Do you think the President said enough today to encourage investors?
In a sense, yes. I should say that this has already been going on. The amounts that you just quoted, the 4,000 megawatts, and the investment is what is currently planned by various mining companies around the country. Every major mining company I'm aware of has got plans to set up some sort of capacity, usually in the form of solar power stations. It's partly because they've been doing very well over the last year or so. And so as a result, they're able to spend on these sort of things. And this is very much an investment for the future. So they're making use of this window while they have got these resources and setting up these plants. And these plants typically take about 2 years, maybe even less to build. So it's something which in the next year or two will make a difference. Even though these are private plants built by the mining companies, it means that those same mines are going to be using less Eskom power. So as a result, the rest of us benefit as well. It's kind of a logical development given that there has been this crisis. So whoever is able to make alternative plans tends to try to move on to some other solution. So it's not only the mines. We see that in farming communities, we see that in shopping malls, and we see it in domestic households.
All right, so what's your take on Operation Lindsay? Some people describe it as uneven progress in reforming the energy sector. The President wants to create the impression that strides are being made. What are your thoughts?
Yes, I don't think things are going quite that well. And I think the main problem is that the very plan for expanding electricity generation, the integrated resource plan, which was last passed in 2019, is already out of date. And in addition to that, the government is behind schedule in approving new projects. So I think that's something that the Ministry of Mining and Energy is responsible for. And it's something that they really should have been pushing much more than they have. In addition, because the energy sector changes so quickly, it's necessary to come up with new plans very regularly. In fact, the ideal is 2 years, and we're already now 3 years since the last one was passed. So, and there's even some commentators saying that we need something like a Marshall Plan for getting the electricity sector back on track again. So we really need something more dramatic than just this. This is also 4,000 megawatts sounds a lot, but this is solar power. Solar power only operates when the sun is up. So ultimately, this is only going to make up or mitigate against roughly 1.5 stages of load shedding. That's not enough. We need more than that. So. Yes, it's a start. It's good that this is happening, but ultimately more needs to be done to encourage investment or building of new plants.
So what do you think is holding us back? You know, one thinks of things like red tape, because when you read that no new independent power producer projects have achieved financial close since 2018, it's remarkable for a country that's in an emergency status that we could have a situation like this.
Yes, red tape has been one of the problems, especially because of what's happened in the past is that even though you're now exempted from licensing, you still need to actually register a project. So I believe that is a little bit of a holdup, but that shouldn't be making such a difference. If that really is a problem, then the National Electricity Regulator simply needs to come up with some sort of a plan that will enable them to process these things more quickly than are currently happening. There's as the mining sector has shown, there's no lack of willingness to invest in new projects. If there's been difficulties getting in financial close, that's all right. I'm not fully aware what exactly the problems have been. I know in some instances, especially these what were supposed to be called the emergency projects, there've been some issues because these are largely gas-based projects. But ultimately, I think that I think that the president is genuinely trying to actually achieve something on the front of just getting this thing out of the way. That could be seen as one of the major achievements of the Ramaphosa presidency if it came off. But right now, it's just being held back. And one just can't help getting the sense that some people don't like the way this is going simply because they're hoping for a comeback of coal or hoping that nuclear will somehow get in and so on. Neither of those, I think, are going to assist the country in the short or even medium term.
Where are we going? I mean, is the obvious end game privatizing the energy sector completely?
Unfortunately, that's where we're going right now. And I don't really think that that's the best way we should be heading. If things were not only planned regularly, but were also, if there was more of a move to stick to the current plans, I think we wouldn't we wouldn't see a situation where everybody would be rushing off to get to find out their private solutions. The energy sector does need a level of regulation. Otherwise, it turns too much of a Wild West almost. We do need some sort of control. And the other problem is that those that are making the alternative arrangements to get electricity, like the mining companies or the wealthier domestic users and so on, those are also usually the people who are able to pay for electricity the easiest. And Eskom does have a problem with recovering funds for electricity sold. So ultimately, if those companies make yet less use of Eskom, in other words, they buy less electricity of Eskom, it means that there's less money coming into Eskom. It's not something that Eskom wants to see over the longer term. So we are Eskom is still in an extremely difficult situation. And I think we are heading into a situation where everybody's trying to make their own plans now, but that's not good either.
Yeah, and I suppose what it does is when we talk about inequality, those that have will be fine and those that don't will get left further and further behind. What lessons can we learn from other developing nations who've managed to get their energy story correct? What should we be doing, do you think?
I think there seem to be too many competing interests in this country, and the whole energy sector is very intimately intertwined with political considerations. I think that's one of the things which has been going wrong. Other countries have been more successful just simply developing things. I think, for example, Namibia has been doing quite nicely over the last couple of years now. They are now moving to the point where they virtually, until now, they were very much dependent on South Africa. I think that's going to change quite soon. So I think one just simply adopts, looks at the country's needs and the country's progress rather than other things, rather than looking at all the other things which are linked to the energy sector. I think that way we would be doing better. But yeah, in theory, this country has got a bit of everything. It's got lots of sunshine, it's got lots of wind. If one really needed to, it's still got a lot of coal and so on. It shouldn't be a problem, and certainly until a couple of years ago, it wasn't a problem. But it's, I suppose one can partly blame the state capture, partly blame bad planning, but we've gotten ourselves into a mess, and we've simply got to get out of it.
All right, I suppose to end where we started, the mining indaba. So not too much fear for the mining sector as long as they're allowed to sort themselves out.
Yes, but I should say that what they are making is not going to cover all their needs. Mines are traditionally some of the heaviest users of electricity. They really have a big demand and so on. the bits that they are getting from the installed solar power stations are going to help them, but ultimately they're not everything they need. They would have to combine this with a lot of batteries, and they would have to invest even more. So they still are going to be using Eskom. It just means that they're going to be paying less Eskom, and they're going to be buying less electricity from Eskom. But ultimately, right now, I think every single mine is still very much dependent on Eskom as well.
Hartmut, thank you so much indeed for joining us. Your insights greatly appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.